Hi, this is Brooks with Character Design Forge. For a while now, I've been a big proponent of a design process that involves starting in a small space and using large or oversized tools like a large brush in a digital application. This lets you do two things. One, it saves time. You can create multiple iterations of something like, say, a character in a short amount of time by working in this small space, and then using one of those versions to expand on and add detail to later. Second, it helps you to establish some strong shape language, the overall flow and silhouette of your character using these big, broad shapes, which will usually lend to a stronger design. Our next step in the comic making process is layout and thumbnailing. Now, through writing this comic, I've figured out that this story should take roughly 20 to 25 pages to tell, but I won't know for sure until I've laid out what happens on each page of this comic. Thumbnailing is a very similar process to that one that I was describing earlier. It involves drawing your overall comic page in a smaller amount of space to quickly establish what's happening, the relationship between the art and text, and the overall flow of the page. During the creation of this Parcel comic, I've been thumbnailing using that same process that I use to make characters, drawing in a small space with a large brush. One thing that thumbnailing helps you to do is establish a good flow and read for your comic on a page-to-page basis. So if you're creating a comic for Western audiences, you want to structure your page the same way that we read text, starting at the top and working toward the bottom, and then starting at the left and working toward the right, zigzagging down the page the same way that text does. If you're looking to practice and improve your blocking and composition in comics, a good thing to study is film. So a director and cinematographer will figure out the best angle, the best way to block things out in a scene, to not only establish clarity, but also use and create some good visual storytelling. Later on, an editor will take these individual shots and stitch them together in a way that's not confusing, but instead establishes an easy flow for the audience watching it. Now, because I've gone through and thumbnailed these pages out first, it's easy for me to go back and make changes in the overall story, little tweaks along the way, without worrying that I'm wasting a bunch of time that I otherwise committed to drawing in little details. Now, as far as the next video in this series, it'll probably have something to do with rendering, and I'm trying to avoid the traditional pencil and then ink style of rendering that's pretty traditional with comics, and through some experimentation, I think I'll end up with something that's a little closer to some of my recent illustration work. Now, you'll probably notice that I am out of town, at least for the recording of this video, which happened last week if you're watching this the day it's uploaded. And the reason I'm able to continue working on this comic so much is that I'm able to do most of it in my iPad on the app Procreate. It can do most of the work that I need it to do in comics. The only thing is that I will eventually either need to hand letter the comic or bite the bullet and bring it into something like Photoshop and add text there. But otherwise, Procreate is a great way to create comics, especially on the go, because I don't need to lug a laptop or desktop around with me to do so. Now, usually at the end of these videos, I'll ask you to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, follow my Instagram @BagelDenizen, tell you about my course Learn Character Design, and how to support the channel at patreon.com/BagelDenizen. I'll take a break from those things this week and set them aside, and instead ask you, please, if you haven't already, check out our show Character Select, episode number 13. The title is Adult Bjorn. It's a show where me and my co-host Mark each bring 3 ideas to the table that the other person doesn't know about, and we create a very silly game character, their gameplay mechanics, their backstory. We make it all up on the spot. If you maybe caught the original episodes of Character Select and maybe were put off by how rough around the edges they were, this is like the new most quintessential episode of the show. I'm really happy about it. If it's not your cup of tea, it's very different from the rest of the videos on this channel. That's perfectly fine, but please give this one a shot if you haven't already done so. Thank you so much for watching, and have fun creating.